Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Well, this is Stan in Gainesville, Florida, and today we're talking about, replacing lighting programmers, solar-powered lights, good short throw wash fixtures, reducing reps, and I'm not talking about the gym, and lilies and lasers, all on Light Talk.
And this is Ellen coming to you from the beautiful tropical island of St. Bart's.
And this is David coming to you from the wonderful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers
And Sister.
That's right, Ellen. Welcome, everyone, to episode 385. We've been getting a lot of feedback about our show that we did last week with Jane Cox. She was amazing. So, and we actually have a letter today that came in about that show that we'll get to during our Let's Talk About segment. But hey, do we have any industry news? Ellen, I heard that you had something to talk about.
Yeah, we do. I have two things. The first is a new book that just came out. It was published on July 25th, and it's called Theater Lighting Design, Conversations on the Art, Craft, and Life. And it's a book that's come out of the UK, and it's been sort of written and edited by Emma Chapman and Rob Holliday. Many of you may know Rob because he also is a lighting designer. I do not know Emma personally, but Rob also just shepherded Richard Pilbrow's last book to press, the one about the National Theater. So no sooner did he finish that than he got this one done. And this book provides an insight into the life of the professional lighting designer through interviews with lighting designers at different stages of their careers, plus a group interview with the designer and lighting team of the hit musical Billy Elliot.
That's Rick Fisher. We love Rick.
Who is American and has lived in the UK for many decades and has kept Billy Elliot looking fabulous for the last, God only knows what, 20 years. And it just reopened in Tokyo. It's a great show. Anyway, the book it's really easy to read because it's written as question and answers with the interviewees, who include Neil Austin, Natasha Chivers, John Clark, Polly Constable, Rick Fisher, Richard Howell, Howard Hudson, Jessica Hung Han Young, Mark Jonathan, Amy May, Ben Ormerod, Bruno Poet, Jackie Shemish, and Johanna Town. Between them, they have worked all over the world on shows of every genre, collecting many awards for their work along the way. And it's a great book, and it's available on Amazon.com.
Wow.
And the other interesting news is that you all know of this place that's in Lidditz, Pennsylvania called Rock Lidditz. I think we've discussed it in the past. It's a big, huge rehearsal hall that started out as one large building with this massive sound stage. And the reason it grew up there is because the companies involved, Tate and Atomic and Claire Global, were already out there. And they sort of built this huge campus, which is now massive. Many, 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 many buildings, a hotel or two. And on the 23rd of August, they're having the grand opening of their new building for their Academy of Live Technology, which is an interesting 4-year program for lighting, sound, visuals, and staging design and technology for the entertainment industry, as well as production and tour management and the business of the business. So that's run by a lighting designer by the name of Sharon Hozinga, who also runs the lighting MFA program at the University of Cincinnati. And it'd be great to get her on the show at some point and talk about
She's
this
a great
program.
person.
Yeah, I know Sharon.
And speaking about getting people on the show, we need to get Rick Fisher on the show.
Absolutely.
Rick is actually a friend of mine, and I don't know why I haven't asked him in like 7.5 years to be on the show, but boy, he is a very interesting cat, and just that whole story about Bill Elliott is fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. Absolutely, we should have him.
Let's do that. Okay, so and Rick, if you're listening, hey, give us a call. actually, I'll contact you. So let's get started today. Stan, you have the first question of the day, right?
Yeah, not so sexy, a simple question. And it comes from Stan in Gainesville, Florida.
Wait. That's you have somebody in Gainesville named Stan?
Yeah, Stan in Gainesville, Florida asks, if you were asked to reduce a rep plot by 50%, what would your method and philosophy be? And he asks this because that's what I'm doing today. And I need
you're
to
asking
do it.
your own question.
I'm actually doing it.
Okay.
We've never done that before. I'm trying to do things we've never done before. I'm asking the question.
Okay.
For me, I wanted the light talk wisdom.
But are you going to answer the question? If you're asking it.
I'm asking the question.
Okay.
Why
so
are
then
they
we're gonna
asking you
answer.
to do this?
Because they ran out of money. They don't have enough money.
It's always money. It's always money.
Well, wait, where is this rep plot? At what facility?
What difference does it make?
A big difference. That's part of the show.
Because I was going to say you should go back and look at the history and see what fixtures are used all the times and which ones are only there for eye candy.
Okay, I'll answer that question, Ellen. New facility,
Okay.
ground up. It's coming out of the ground.
How many fixtures are you talking about when you said reduced by 50%? What was the number?
That's a good question. The original count is probably in the 50s to 60s units.
All moving lights?
All moving lights, but some strip lights.
Okay. So they want you to go down to 25.
Well, do you do it by number? Is that it? I said 50%.
Oh, 50%
there's only
in money. Oh, you're right. So you could buy a bunch of cheap Chinese lights and still get 50 lights, but they'll be crap.
Right. And that would not...
you don't want to go that route.
And the reason we don't do that is because the most valuable thing you have as a designer or a company is your reputation.
Right.
Right. So we're not doing that.
What is the program for this facility?
Yeah, good question. Good question. Pretty broad. Everything from musical theater all the way to physics experiments.
How big is the stage?
The stage zone, now let's just explain that the facility can be completely opened up like a soundstage, like Rocklit it's in that format. And one end of it has a kind of stage zone, which would be about, I think it's, if you don't mask it, it's probably 70 to 80 feet wide, like the building, and maybe 30 to 35 feet deep. And you can make a proscenium that might be more like a 40 by 30. I have the drawing open, but I'm not going to do that now because I'm looking at your faces.
And now you wish you'd put in 120 lights so you could cut it to 60.
It's done to 60. So I have an answer. One approach, and it's really bold and crazy. Just find the most important angles that you need. And I would argue that you can get it down to maybe 10, 9 or 10. I'd say 9.
Fixtures or angles?
9 angles, and buy really big, powerful fixtures, 9 of them, and hang them there. Because think about it. Really, what do you need for front light? Okay, let's say you have 2 box booms and you have something in the, and maybe a front fill. That's 3 right there. 3 lights. Boom, you're done. You need some pipe ends, maybe 2 and 2. That's 7. You need backlight, get a big wide light. That's 1. That's 8 lights. And then you have 1 spare. Done. 9
You're
lights.
going completely European on us now.
I'm going totally European. Matter of fact, if this was 30 years ago, they would all be HMI, big HMI, like 10K or 20K HMIs.
Hey.
Oh, yeah. One more thing. If you have the money, I would also add 3 really good video projectors.
What do you do if there's like a full orchestra?
Oh, the orchestra's different. I mean, you can use it with the downlight. You can just use it with the downlight.
Well, it seems to me, an easy number here with what the technology that's available to us today, 12 moving lights and 60 really good higher end LED ellipsoidals.
I mean, that's going to cost you just as much, 60 LEDs.
I guess the question is ultimately what is the budget? 60 lights, man. You cover a lot of territory if they're all color changing on a 30 by 40 stage.
Absolutely.
You do a lot. So the short answer here is you make an ABC list. A's you have to have, B's are going to be great, and C's are not necessary.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Priorities.
Yeah. Yeah, you also, what's the biggest thing? You don't know what's coming in there. That's the problem. You can't ask for a couple of sample plots and say, okay, we're going to have this, this, and this.
Looks like the money has to go into the infrastructure of being able to put a light anywhere they need it. Because right now the plot is showing it's just really a proscenium theater, but not really.
Steve gets the cigar because philosophically, how we look at it is if it's got to come motor freight wrapped on a pallet, we don't want to cut it. If UPS or FedEx can deliver it in a cardboard box, yes, we can cut it because it can come later. And we can, they can also, they're in a market where it's easy to rent, so they can supplement fixtures. So some of those concerns are allayed. David, you're thinking like a designer, like a very sophisticated designer. Like I would love what you're saying for Stan K, but I'm not doing it for me. So I'm taking who's in there, who's the staff, who are the designers. You know, most of these people haven't been to Europe. They don't. Oh, you know, you're talking about OFS lighting. You know, one freaking source. I love it. Highly directional, big bold strokes. Love it. But I don't think that's the right shoe for this foot, if you will. But
so then you're going to go with the 60 LED ellipsoidals and the 12 movers, right?
No, it's all movers.
Oh, it's all movers.
The reason we're not going to do conventionals is because then we have to build access to them,
right?
Or you're sending people up in a lift a lot, and so
or your grid is walkable.
Correct.
Your trusses are walkable,
and that becomes a larger infrastructure cost and a safety issue. So we'd rather the lights come down with the push of a button when they need to be touched or hung or taken off, and we'd rather young people be learning how to program, right, at a console than going up with a wrench and a pair of gloves.
And what type of console you're using?
This one, I have to check. It's probably an Ion.
No, I was just going to say, it seems to me, again, at that kind of money you're talking about, I've seen a couple houses in Europe that are like this, and they have maybe 10 battens or 10 trusses, but the entire truss is on a trolley system, so you can track the truss where you want it.
That'd be cool.
If you want 5 at the north end of the building and 2 at the south end of the building, you can just pull them into those positions. So that way, I think flexibility in your grid is really important.
Yeah, that's a great idea, except for the fact that we have an acoustical ceiling that's fixed. So that becomes complex.
So, Ellen, you have the next question, and it's about Lili, right?
Okay, yeah. Alan from Toronto asks, what do you think about the new Lilis, and are they regulated like lasers? So before we go any further, I have a trivia quiz for you guys. What does laser stand for?
Light amplification through simulated emissive response.
No.
It sounded really good to me.
Light amplification by the simulated emission of radiation.
Excuse me. Are you talking about the lasers we use in the theater or the little tiny ones we put on sharks?
They're all the same.
I was off by one word. I was pretty darn close with a 67-year-old memory.
Right.
Not bad.
So there are now Lilis on the market. Claypacky has one. Araton has one. There's probably others that you will see at LDI. And that stands for Laser Illuminated Lighting Instruments, which are incorporating a laser source into the fixture.
Oh, yeah, that's been around for a while.
The difference, as I understand it, is that ordinary light, such as that from a light bulb, has many wavelengths and spreads in all directions. Laser light, however, has a specific wavelength.
That's right.
It can be focused into a tight beam and can concentrate very high-intensity light at large distances from the laser. So yes, in the United States, Lilis are regulated in essentially the same manner as conventional light show laser projectors, and the same FDA regulations apply for the manufacturers of lasers and Lilis, as well as the laser shows themselves. And I don't know what those regulations are specifically, but it's where they're hung, keeping them out of the audience's eyes, the height of the lasers, where the beams go, and it's very complicated. And there is an organization in the United States that's called ILDA, the International Laser Display Association, and they're based in Florida. And Patrick Murphy, who runs that, is a well of information about this and has worked with LDI, for example, on the regulations for the lilies and in the booths of our various exhibitors and the rules and regulations that they have to comply to. So yes, Alan, we think the new lilies are very cool because they are a very crisp, cool, sharp beam of light. And yes, they are regulated pretty much just like lasers. Have you played with these guys?
I haven't played with them. I am not an expert in lasers. And they're kind of dangerous, so it's like asking me to do pyro. That you don't ever do pyro if you're not licensed and trained in it, right? The same thing for me with lasers. And I have a question about that, Alan, because there are lasers on the floor of LDI, and there's a lot of atmosphere effects. There's smoke and haze and stuff like that. And how is all that regulated?
Well, Patrick Murphy, who I just mentioned from ILDA, serves as our laser safety officer, and he meets with every single company that has lasers and now has lilies, and they have to be FDA certified. If they're not certified, they cannot be shown on the show floor, as I understand it. And sometimes they've been moved to meeting rooms because they can't be in public places, and or they have to be fixed with a fixed beam. They cannot move throughout the show because of the size of the audience and everybody walking through. So there are rather strict rules and regulations that apply to these new fixtures.
What does it stand for again, Ellen? L-I-L-I?
Lili stands for Laser Illuminated Lighting Instrument, L-I-L-I.
I saw one in a private breakout room last year.
Yep.
And it was pretty darn amazing. It was just over the top with what a couple fixtures could do.
Yeah, they're very bright.
So they're using a laser source on top of an LED or a traditional other type of source, or it's just a laser?
I think they have both.
They have both. So I think what is it? One of those movie mirror fixtures at one time that high end made had a laser in it as well as a discharge lamp. I remember years and years ago, but it wasn't very bright at all.
Right.
It was more of like a little like laser pointer in it, kind of thing.
It just annoyed cats in the auditorium.
Right.
I have a very strong laser pointer in green that I use when I go on job sites to point to something far away. When you buy these things, there's different classifications, even the ones you buy on Amazon. And this one is way brighter than I should really have.
So you occasionally are on the construction site and you hear a scream somewhere?
No, I've got one of those too. It could bring down a jet airplane if I, hit it with it.
That was class 2 or class 3. I forget which class it is. Yeah.
Man, you guys are falling into the James Bond supervillains.
I mean, you just have to think about it. When you go to the ETC factory and you see where they cut the panels for the tops of lighting consoles, it's laser cut. It's laser cutting through steel. I mean, lasers are not... Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to say that, you can do a lot of damage with lasers, even if they're not cutting steel.
You need to be a certified laser operator to run them at a show.
That's right.
Sure.
So any concert where you see lasers has a certified laser operator, in theory.
There's a video I have of Mark Brickman on a Paul McCartney concert taking a cigarette, walking over to the laser table and putting it in his mouth and sticking the cigarette in there and lighting it. And then he goes, now don't do this at home. We're professionals. And then he laughs.
Well, you saw the real-life application. I mean, I'm sure you all remember not that long ago, the space lasers.
Right, that's what I was alluding to earlier.
Yeah. Jewish space lasers from outer space.
But to Ellen's point, it's all about the frequency. It's all about the nanometer. So you shoot, if you do that, if you create a laser, I mean, this goes on in manufacturing, in medicine. I mean, they use lasers to because they're so precise. Laser cutting devices for surgery.
Right.
Lasers is not like something you just be a hobbyist with. Yeah.
Right. Well, at LDI this year, definitely go around and take a look.
You expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond. I expect you to die.
Elon Musk is practicing that line over and over.
Oh.
All right, everyone. Today, you're listening to Light Talk, episode 385. And Light Talk today is sponsored by...
Like a tsunami of technology rolling across the mighty Pacific, watch out. Illegitimate Panda is heading your way with Icarus. When you really, really want something new and innovative, you can count on the good men and women of Illegitimate Panda to come through. Just look at our past products that have changed the face of the entertainment industry. The Crippled Dragon line of moving lights, the Space Laser 3000, the I Absolutely Hate Christmas Lights LED gutter system, the Suck 2000 IKEA moving light kit, the Weasel's Blast Fart Fogger. And who can forget our flagship light? The Splosh. It's not a spot. It's not a wash. It's a splosh. For nearly a decade, Illegitimate Panda has been working around the clock in super secret development for the last moving light you will ever need. And now, for 2024, we offer Icarus. Icarus, so named for the lad who flew too close to the sun and perished into the sea. Icarus is the first totally solar-powered moving light. Just hang it in your theater and say bye-bye to high energy cost. The fully charged Icarus can function for 3 hours, switch to 25% output mode, and get 4 incredible hours of state-of-the-art LED lighting magic. But wait, I know what you're thinking. How does a solar-powered moving light recharge itself in a dark, empty theater? Simple. Just add the 110 or the 220-volt Daedalus high-intensity 5K lamp box to the yoke. Focus onto the Icarus solar panel and let Daedalus recharge the unit when the fixture is not in use. Nothing could be simpler. And Icarus has a sweet price point of only $199.99. Order a dozen and we'll throw in 12 Daedalus units for only $79,000 more. Icarus, shipping now for the fall dance recital season. Illegitimate Panda, making the stuff you never knew you needed. See you at LDI, Guelo.
I hope you intend to have those on your booth.
Working or non-working?
I want to know, I have not seen the Weasel's Last Fart Fogger. Has that been on our show before?
That has been on our show, yes.
Oh my God, how did I miss that? It went right over my head.
It's based off the, in China, weasels are a pest animal, so they are culled quite a bit. Okay. But apparently when you cull a weasel, it expels that one last fart, which is kind of almighty.
Wow. So it's a big puff of haze, so to speak.
It is a big puff of haze.
Big puff of haze.
The weasel's last fart.
Okay. And now, back to Light Talk.
The sound of those laser-crazed monkeys, ducks, and baby iguanas tell us that once again it's time for Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About is all about, well, it's all about a letter that we received from Robert from the Grand Bahamas. I don't think we've had anybody from the Grand Bahamas. I wonder if it's Lucaya. He writes, well, last week you were discussing the future of AI and lighting controllers with your guest, Jane Cox. David, that's me, was arguing that lighting companies will eventually start introducing AIs into their controllers to make them faster to program, resulting in a time when a designer can just talk to the light board and tell where to focus the lights, what color they should be, etc., etc., etc. He also said that this technology may replace the programmer. Jane argued that in her experience, technology is becoming more complicated and everything is in fact taking more time. She also said that this will remove the added creativity and collaboration that the programmer brings to the table. What do you think the future holds for lighting programmers and controllers? Well, first of all, Robert, I must say that Stan was talking about this before I did, probably a couple of years, and we were just getting on this story during our interview with Jane, which was fantastic. If you haven't heard it, check out episode 384. It's a great, great interview. She's an amazing person and great designer and a lot of fun. It was great to have her on the show. But anyway, okay, so my point is that it's just a matter of time that these controllers are going to have this chip in them, and they're going to have the technology so that it could decipher what you're asking for and actually produce it faster than it takes for the designer to talk to the programmer trying to figure out what the hell the designer wants and what they mean, which lights to use, what the color should be, all that stuff. So how did I change my mind on this? Because before I didn't think we were anywhere close. But now something happened last week. Last week I bought a new iPad. I was at the Apple store. The Apple person came to me and she said, "Hey, what are you doing? Since we have some time, would you like to check out Apple Vision Pro?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. I'd love to. Let's check out this technology." Well, they put the mask on you. Actually, you'll love this, Stan. They actually take your eyeglasses and they bring them in the back and they measure what your prescription is. And then the Apple Vision automatically puts the prescription into the goggles so that you just look, it's clear as day. But anyway, it's really fantastic. It's 3D. It's 180 degrees left, right, up, and down. Really, really impressive technology. But the one thing that they have that is sort of relates to what I'm talking about now is that these goggles will track your eye movements. So if you're looking at something, you can actually make a selection. You can actually look at something and pinch your fingers together and it will select it, right? So I'm thinking to myself, well, if I'm in a theater and I have these goggles on and I'm looking at the stage and I'm looking at the set, I can look at an area on the stage and tell the light board, put fixture 73 there. Okay. Zoom it in all the way. Turn it blue. Okay. A little more green in that blue. Yeah. Right there. Okay. Zoom it out just a bit. Now rotate a gobo. Now put three fixtures 12, 23, and 74 on top of it in different colors and strobe them all at 30 beats per second randomly. And it will do that. This is the type of technology that's available to do it. We have it now. So it's just a matter of time, I think, for ETC or someone else to come up with this. And even for the programmer, not necessarily for the designer, just to make it a lot simpler. I'm still waiting for a synthesizer to do this so that you can say, okay, I want the same sound that's on Rosanna by Toto, the second part of the keyboard solo. Boom, and there it is, instead of having to program it. So this is the type of technology that I'm sure we're going to see soon.
So you're talking about these boards having verbal commands?
Yes.
We say, can I have those lights at, X number of degrees at X intensity now? And they just move.
And it's where you're looking at it, and you're looking at it through the goggles because it's knowing where you're looking, because it's tracking your eyes.
How about if they were numbered and the console knew what numbers you were talking about and you go, okay, let me have, because maybe it's like, over here and over there and you can't look at them all at the same time. So you go, can I get numbers 1, 7, 9,
that's
and
what I'm
11?
saying. Yeah, you're calling out the fixture number. You're just looking at where you want it focused. I want it focused on that door.
Got
right
it.
There.
Got it.
Or you can ask, give me a fixture that's available for the next 3 cues to hit that chair with. And then the board will look ahead on the cues to see which fixture is not being used in those cues, and will show it to you and see if you like it. So am I crazy, Stan? Am I crazy, Steve?
Well, since you're going to give me the floor first, so you caught up to me. I was saying that 2 years ago.
And why aren't you a millionaire? You should have sold this idea to ETC.
Well, look, let me just tell you, it is never fun being ahead of your time. Trust me. Okay.
I've never had this problem, Stan. What can I tell you?
It's kind of painful for me, actually. But I sketched out that scenario when you all got mad about people on the Facebook group were screaming. Well, we heard Stan say that. What about programmers? We're not going to have jobs. So, okay, let's take a little bit of humility since we're speculating. You never really know where anything's going to go, and nobody should be too sure, right, about how things are really going to pan out. But there's a lot of logic in that, what you're saying. And I think I'll use those 2 words I used back then. It happens in capitalist societies. It's always, as long as we have capitalism, you're always going to have, as Karl Marx said, creative destruction. There will be job losses. There will be advancements, and it just happens. Will that happen? Have you asked me, would I go to Vegas and bet on it? Yeah, I would take a good bet on that idea. But let me say something else, where I'm still fortunate to be connected to the University of Florida, even though I'm deinstitutionalized. I get a peek into what's coming. on the tech side, because there's some amazing people here. Because I had to represent somebody in a meeting. So this person is a researcher in artificial intelligence, and in particular, integrated circuits and chips. And we had dinner a couple of weeks ago, and I said, tell me a little bit more about what you do. I said, I know you work with chips, and he flies his own jet, and he goes around to, well, these military installations. So it's sort of like that level guy. And he said, well, think about it. In a regular chip, you have pathways. And what did we send down the pathways? We send electrons. So electrons move through integrated chips, and then they do their calculations, and you get an output. He said, now, what are the three problems with an integrated chip? One is its speed, and its speed is dependent upon how hot it gets, as you all know if you own a computer, right, or a graphics card. The heat generated, the cost involved in running those chips, high-end chips, and three, the speed at which the electrons are moving through the chips. So here's what I'm doing. This is his research. They are now developing AI chips where rather than using electrons running through the circuitry, it's photons. And I said, okay, so what's the advantage of that? He said, the speed difference is exponential at the speed at which the chips will think. Two, the heat is drastically reduced, and thus the amount of electrical consumption necessary. So are we going to see those kinds of chips in light boards? We'll probably be the last to get them, but you're going to see them in guided missiles. You're going to see them in aircraft. You're going to see them in satellites. You're going to see them in supercomputers. So it's very difficult to sort of, I think, to even imagine in our, as fertile as our imaginations are, what the impact of these changes is going to be on our industry and the world at large. It's really hard to say. Interesting, though, the stock market pulled back on AI this week because maybe it's not going to be what everybody thinks it's going to be. I would bet it's going to be things that we can't even begin to understand.
Stan, I have a question for you. Imagine that you're selling a lighting system, or you're proposing a lighting system for a high school, right? And
I do that.
And you do that, right? And you tell this the client, you say, look, because there's a new light board out. He goes, all you have to do is say, I want an even front wash from your front of house fixtures across the stage in blue. Go. And there it is. And I want backlights from the Third Electric in clear to cover that entire area. How difficult could that be?
We get asked and this is real, not theoretical. You're putting in all these automated lights in our high schools, and we're concerned about them breaking or this or that, or the students and you know, all these, but it's more complicated. And I say, actually, no, because we're going to come in and make all these pallets, okay? And if somebody's doing the orchestra concert, they push one button for the orchestra concert or whatever. But if you want to train people to be sophisticated, and you got each end of the spectrum, complete control or plug and play. But I think your point about, I think David Brooks made this point in the New York Times about AI. It's not going to be about, for us as humans, getting the output that we want anymore. It's going to be about the prompt. Our focus is going to be on what questions do we ask? What do you say? Saying that is one thing, but actually interpreting the script, interpreting the music, giving the prompt is going to be where the creativity is, not in getting the output.
Well, you're still designing because you're talking to the machine like you would talk to a programmer. You'd say, take these fixtures and put it there. Correct, but it forces you to
focus on being really articulate about what you want.
Well, but you are. I mean, I am. I say, take fixture 23, hit that person down left, you know, zoom it all the way in.
I think we'll be able to speak more poetically than ever.
Well, you could say, make it look like a Theron Musa cue, I guess. You could say, you know, something that's there.
Well, but that's not, yeah, right. I mean, that's sort of cheating,
That's
right?
cheating. I would never do that. But it's a great tool. Steve, you had something to say. Sorry about that.
Jane, where are you when I need you? I agree with Jane completely in this. And I just want to say, I cannot even get in my damn car and say, Dairy Queen near me. and get there. Alexa or whoever comes back and goes, West Town Mall. No, Dairy Queen. Dairy Queen. David Queen Avenue does not exist. No, I mean, come on. I think we're into science fiction world, and we're nowhere close to that. We're nowhere close to that on a lighting console.
Okay.
I'm going to take a bet on Steve.
I'll take a bet on that too.
I'll take the bet on you.
I'll take any bet you want to take. You put on your Battlestar Galactica Xylon headpiece and be a little bit more removed from the action on stage and the director sitting next to you. We've all seen this happen, and this technology always has downsides. If I cast my mind back to Vectorworks,
my favorite program.
If you said, draw me a light plot, the student would say, okay, here's your light plot, and I've got 60 lights in it, and I've drafted it, it's great. That same student all of a sudden sees the cut and paste button, and that 60 light plot is turned into 200 lights without even thinking about it. I can, sure, for a rarefied air of designers, this might be great. But, God, how many times have you gone into the theater and an unexperienced designer is sitting there, and you go, have you made your palettes for tonight's show? And they go, oh, no, we're just going to make it up as we go. I'll sit with the director. We'll find the right blue. Okay. 3 hours later, they're still looking for the right blue. Right. I mean, have you done your work to prepare for tonight's queuing session? Well, I'm just going to look at stuff because I can just call it out really fast. For some designers, some designers who are qualified to do this and have done all of their homework, maybe. And let's take into account what you're asking it to do. Let's take into account accents, speech impediments. Put the light where I'm looking. I think this is so far away. And Stan made a point, and he's running away from the point he made. And his statement was, and today the market pulled back from AI. Now, I don't think they're pulling back. I think there's a number of reasons they're pulling back. But they could be pulling back because they think it's not quite what they expected it to be, and it's not quite going to happen as fast as it's going to happen. So I think talking to the light console, I think that is pretty far down the road. Put the light where I'm looking. I cannot hear you, for the sound guy has got the sound turned up too loud. I mean, you see the director sitting there yelling at you, not mad, but just trying to get your attention. That clear wash on the back, David Jacques said, put it down front with the blue lights. Let's see that.
Wait a minute, Steve. I got to jump in. You've all used Augmented, right? Augmented is already letting you walk around the stage with an iPhone, and light follows you when you record the focus position.
That's different from sitting in an auditorium talking to your light board. That's different. That is a different thing. I think we're far away from this. And the reason I also think we're far away from it is that the entertainment industry is the smallest little drip of money in the AI world. That's very true. So where is this technology going? Right now, where it seems to be going is gaming, and gaming forever.
And defense.
But people are designing gaming. They're designing atmospheres for games, right? So all this is going into that technology. It's just a matter. I'm sure people at ATC are thinking about this.
I was going to say, it's interesting you mentioned gaming, because the Bob Boniols of the world will tell you that in projection and video world, they all have latched onto the Unreal and the other gaming stuff to use
for content,
because the theatrical stuff is a little too clunky or whatever. And I think this is definitely coming. How fast depends on a lot of things. I think one of the reasons that the stock market may have taken a little step back from AI is like Elon Musk's self-driving cars are crashing, killing people at a rapid rate.
Just because Stan has killed a few people last week, you're going to blame it on Elon. I mean, poor Stan. He's like an old man driving in Florida, right?
No, I'm just saying that there have been some setbacks, and I do think it is definitely coming in our industry.
All right. And, Steve, I was a little surprised when you were talking about you were supporting what Jane said, because I thought you were going to go where I'm going to go right now, and that is the loss of the collaboration a designer has with a programmer.
Well, I think I made that point with you, you wearing your goggles, sitting at the tech table, and you're isolated.
I'm not saying this is what I want either, by the way, because I work with programmers all the time, and they give me the best ideas. And this is Jane's point, which she's right. The problem, though, is when technology reaches a point where these lighting consoles are listening to you and tracking where your eyes are, then it's like, okay, this is what I want. This is where it goes, and it's a lot faster.
Is it a lot faster?
It will be. I think this would be, once it's refined, a lot faster. Now, Jane doesn't agree with me.
I think we're generations away from this. And, again, Stan brings up a point. I would say, to Stan, what is your most difficult sell in a theater today? And I would argue it is a lighting console. And you bring a console in, and it seems simple to you. It seems simple to all of us. And you have a high school teacher who's doing 87 things, and they just go, oh, my God, oh, my God. And now you're going to put goggles on their head. And and I think it's very nice of you. I think I wish more people would do that, to come in and really set the console up, program it, lay out a bunch of palettes, do exactly what you're talking about. But then somehow a year later, all that crap's been erased or altered or changed, and that poor teacher is back again at ground zero. So I think the more we hit them with heavy technology, this will change. I mean, everything changes. But boy, it's not going to change fast. Even if the prices are dirt cheap, the fear factor of, I'm so far out of my element, how can I make this work? Maybe if I don't know. I'm not saying there isn't a high-end user that's not going to jump on top of this and go for it. But not everyone drives a Ferrari.
Right. This is happening in museums. Museums didn't quite know how to handle LEDs. They did not know quite how to handle tunable white color temperatures on art. They've really it was a tsunami, the changes in the last 10 years from museums. And the more sophisticated museums have embraced a lot of this stuff. And I went to sessions with folks from the Getty Museum and the Smithsonian, and we said, well, we can't, the guy who deals with lighting at the museum more often than not is the janitor, right? Who doesn't have, and in the best museums, you have actual lighting designers. So that's going to take that's taken for them a huge transition, right? Because it can't just be a guy with a stick changing a light bulb anymore, because the technology, they sort of have to step up. And so it is a conundrum. And I hear what Steve is saying. One way we mitigate that in our projects specifically is we keep a show file available. We're on call for all of our projects, and we go back years later if something were to happen. We really have that. We don't just leave them alone. But we're not the average bear. We're small, we're boutique, and we take that kind of care for our clients. But Steve's point is well taken. If you just throw a light board at them and you don't really kind of set it up for them and show them and not just the ETC training, which they do a day or 2 days with people, and you're able to absorb 10 or 15% of it, and the rest of it just, but so we do a different kind of training. But it is a challenge. I think Steve makes good points.
I think this is I'm going to turn it back to David because he's on to something, I think, with collaboration. But I think disruption is not a bad thing. But I think this is a different type of disruption than there was when we moved from auto transformers to preset consoles to computer consoles. We're taking a human being really out of it in a different way, and I think that's where some people are going to thrive at this.
That's not theater, and this is where I'm on Jane's team. In at least 90% of the shows that I create, I can credit the programmer as being part of that creative process. Now, it's not always the case. Sometimes you get someone who's just there is doing a union gig and that's it, and you just tell them what to do and they do it, right? Okay. But the great programs like Andy Figueroa, right? People I've worked with for years. Jim Waits. For a long time, Jim Waits was a Verilight programmer, and we worked together on a number of shows. That's what theater's about. It's about collaboration. So, I'm talking about something that I'm expecting to happen. How much fight back you're going to get from designers and directors, I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to watch. All right, Steve has the final question of the day.
So this is from Amy from Boston, and somehow she did not know that Stan was going to ask the question he's asking. So she says, Stan, we are building a small theater in the basement of a drugstore. We will have a 10 to 11 foot high grid when complete. Can you recommend a good wash unit? And her budget is not $1.2 million.
$300 more like it.
and there are two lights that I have used that I just think are just incredible when you're working in a small space like this. They're both from ETC, the ETC Color Source Par, and I like the deep blue variety. And I also, it took me a while to come around to their Color Source Par Junior. Both of those things are about the size of a cantaloupe. They put out a tremendous amount of light, and they're great with color mixing, and you can put different types of frost-like material in to get the beam you want. But these things, under $500, and you're off and running. And geez, the Color Source Par, I think you can put 8 on a relay. So I mean, it doesn't take any power. They're 5 pounds maybe on a good day. Perfect little tiny light to put up, and it just has so much punch in it.
Nothing to add. In fact, I haven't seen those. I have to look at those since you're praising them so high at LDI this year.
Oh, they're amazing. The little Color Source Par Junior is a 4-light, 5 LEDs, 4-light, a 4-light output. It's 2,300 lumens. The Color Source Par, 8 LEDs in it again. 5 color array. They just if you're putting them up at the Metropolitan Opera, maybe not. But if you're working in a small black box theater or a little storefront theater or a little off Broadway theater, you can't do much better than those two lights.
We use the Color Source strips on almost all of our. In fact, the one we just talked about, the expensive one. The one thing I didn't cut in the rep plot were 2 banks of Color Source strips, one to do the psych, and one as a backlight array, for that stage area. Yeah.
I was going to also say she could have some psych lights on the floor with a 7-color LED array to sort of wash that back wall and give her a little more flexibility.
Yeah.
I mean, there's at least I would say a dozen companies from South America to China to parts of Europe and the United States who make something like this, and you're going to see them all at LDI. You just have to decide, who you trust. They're all the same price.
All right. Well, I'm off to San Francisco this week to do my premiere at the San Francisco Opera.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Are you going to see any San Francisco liberals up there?
I'm going to check out all the San Francisco liberals there.
Can I just say something? There is nothing wrong in a country that claims it's got freedom. People can be free to be liberal. It's okay.
I know.
You can be conservative. You can be liberal. You can be moderate. Freedom, baby.
Okay, well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tell us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website at lighttalk.org. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you decide to litigate, I just want to remind you all that we are trademarked all the way until 2028. And if you mess with us, the Snoop Group with the legal team of Sparks, Burnout, and Chase will defend us until our retirement accounts are completely depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers and Sister, coming to you from Long Beach, St. Bart's, Gainesville, and the Lone Star State.
And be sure to join us next week when we talk about more lighting shenanigans and serve you more of our casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Toodles.
Bye.